No more pronouns, no more climate change obsession, no more emergency vaccine mandates, no more dudes in dresses. We're done with that.
I love it. Absolutely love it. Hey, gang, it's me, Dr. Stephen. In a recent video, Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth introduced the Less Generals, More GIs policy, aiming to streamline the U.S. military's leadership structure. Now, this initiative mandates a 20% reduction in four-star generals and admirals, along with a 10% cut across all general and flag officer ranks. Now, the policy seeks to reallocate resources from high-ranking positions to bolster frontline troops, enhancing strategic readiness and operational effectiveness. Hegseth emphasized that this move is not punitive, but a strategic effort to optimize military efficiency and combat capability. So a good example of this is during World War II, there was approximately one general for every 6,000 troops. But in contrast, today, the current ratio stands at one general for every 1,400 service members. So Hegseth used that comparison in a recent address to argue that an increase in high-ranking officers does not necessarily translate to greater military success, emphasizing the need to streamline leadership to enhance operational effectiveness. But the obvious question here that everyone should be asking is, how did our military get so bloated in the first place? And are these reforms enough? Well, joining me today to help me think through these things is Lieutenant Colonel R. Davis Utes, retired. Davis served as an officer in the Air Force JAG Corps and now works as a constitutional attorney. He was ranked the #1 senior defense counsel in the Air Force and has won a number of awards for his service record, including the Air Force Meritorious Service Medal, the Air Force Commendation Medal, and the Trial Advocacy Award from the Association of Trial Lawyers of America. Davis, welcome. Great to see you again, my friend.
Oh, it's an honor to join you, sir.
Well, it's an honor to have you. And I am. You should know, we might have chatted about this last time we were together, but I have to go to a graduation as well. My daughter's graduating from law school. I'm very proud of her. And so hopefully, yes, we're going to have vibrant legal minds continue to flourish in our country like yours. So, but you are first and foremost a military man. So what is actually going on here? You've been on the front lines of this. So basically, from your vantage point, how bad have things gotten in our military?
You know, it's a great question, and we could spend hours talking about examples of the things that I have seen. Because I was essentially forced to retire because of the unlawful COVID mandate in December of 2022 after 20 years of service. And so it got so bad during the Biden administration that anyone who really believed in the Constitution, any Christian that wanted to continue to serve, was placed in a very, very difficult position. And they really had to compromise because the persecution was so extreme. I mean, one of the most fundamental examples was I was a reservist, a lieutenant colonel, and I was sitting in an auditorium on an Air Force base, and we were supposed to be getting anti-extremism training. And so they had this woman on the stage talking to us about what it meant to be an extremist, a dangerous extremist. And the answer was anyone who believes in an idea so much that they would be willing to give their lives or sacrifice their lives for it, that's an extremist. Now think about this concept, right?
You're in the military. You're in
for a second. I'm in uniform in the military on an Air Force base, sitting next to uniformed military members, being told if I actually take my oath to the Constitution seriously, I am an extremist. That sounds like an absurd example, but that was just the tip of the iceberg of the things that we were seeing. So, you know, aside from examples like that, people just need to understand the military, the Department of Defense as an institution is an enormous bureaucracy that has all the same issues and the bloat that every other government agency does. You have 32,000 people that work at the Pentagon. That's larger than most cities in this country. Wow. just of layers and layers of bureaucracy. So when we throw terms out there like deep state or otherwise, there's a lot, all those things, everything else we see in society, the military is just a microcosm of. And when you have a big government bureaucracy, if you're not careful, you end up with the bloat that we have. So it was incredibly bad. And there was absolutely a purge of Christians throughout the Department of Defense. So all of these things he's talking about, there is a reason Secretary Hegseth is being so forceful about these issues.
And again, if you think about it, it's so insane. I mean, because very similar to what you just said. I mean, the Christian warrior is like the prototype warrior, I mean, going all the way back, to the Middle Ages. They didn't fear death. They were valiant. They were virtuous. Whereas wokeness is, I mean, it's like the epitome of narcissism. I mean,
that's right.
I mean, the woke and warrior are mutual. It's like a square circle. They're not going to give their lives for anything. I mean, it's just so absurd. Did anyone else, to your right or to your left, recognize how absurd that definition was?
They did, and that's part of the problem. So, I mean, what this led to during the Biden administration, just even set aside everything that happened with COVID and the COVID mandate for a moment, and just think about all the other things that were occurring, the DEI, the indoctrination of all of these, anti-common sense, anti-biblical philosophies that were coming in, this religion, this woke religion that was coming into the military. That's why it was an absolute bloodbath. When you look at the numbers of people that left, the retention and recruiting numbers were so bad. Christians left. Anyone who really believed in standards or just the warfighter ethos left. And what you were left with were people that were in the military because they embraced this progressive ideology. They were holdovers in senior leadership from the Obama administration, or they were people who wanted Uncle Sam to pay for their transgender surgeries and treatment. Right. And again, that sounds crazy in a country like ours, but that's the reality of what we were dealing with in the DoD.
I'm getting a blister on my finger from How is, from your vantage point, how is Hegseth doing? What's the perception of him? I mean, the recruiting numbers seem to be just through the roof. How is he doing in the face of just this enormity of reform?
So, the challenge that he faces, that anyone faces, is the bureaucracy that's there at the Pentagon is so entrenched. It is so powerful. So at every turn, he's being pushed back against, and there's a lot of malicious compliance going on. So a couple of weeks ago, I was at the Pentagon meeting with a senior Department of Defense official, talking about some of these issues, talking about how to reinstate individuals that were pushed out under the COVID purge. And what I realized as I'm in this meeting is the reason the meeting got delayed for 2 months is this senior Department of Defense official wanted to meet with us, but his own staff kept delaying the meeting, and we had to go to him directly to get the meeting. And you see that with Secretary Hegseth. He comes out, he records a video where he calls the COVID mandate unlawful, and he calls the vaccine experimental, really significant things. He's being told by all the attorneys at the Pentagon not to do that. And then the memo that comes out doesn't mention experimental or unlawful. That's because some attorney there at the Pentagon wrote it. So he is doing a good job. He is messaging well. His desire and heart is in the right place, but he is facing the deep state at the Pentagon that's pushing back against all the things that he's trying to do to make this right. So it is extremely challenging. And the other piece is it takes time, way too long, to get all of the people he needs in these positions of trust so he can make these changes. For example, I don't know if you've heard of Matt Lohmeyer, but he was a Space Force lieutenant colonel who was fired because he wrote a book called The Irresistible Revolution about the communist takeover of the DoD. And they fired him for that, even though he didn't do anything wrong. And he's been nominated for the #2 position at the Air Force, the Assistant Secretary of the Air Force. He just had his confirmation hearing, but he hasn't been approved yet. But when guys like that are there to back Hegseth up, I think we're going to see some real changes. So the desire is there, the intent is there, but it is taking time.
Yeah, absolutely. How deep does it go? It sounds to me you're saying it's rotten to the core, so we as civilians, we just don't know about the military, the DoD until it's basically too late. But there seems to be, it seems that the reform has to be absolutely holistic. Are we talking root canal here? I mean, how deep does this
Yes.
go? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
In my opinion, it has to be a total transformation. And again, there's been some great things that happens. One of the things, and I think most people in the public wouldn't necessarily understand the significance of it, but Trump fired all of the TJAGs. So that stands for the Judge Advocate General. So the senior attorney, uniform wearing attorney for each branch of the service, Trump fired them.
Wow.
Great. Now the question is who will replace them, but that's the kind of transformational change that we need. And the symptoms are everywhere. So again, just because we understand that most people in the military, many people in the military serve for the right reasons. It's incredible, the people that I had the opportunity to serve with, those that are still serving. However, they reflect society as a whole. So where are they being educated? Are they people of faith? Do they even believe in our nation? If we have government schools that are indoctrinating them with, communist rhetoric, anti-American rhetoric, then they come into the military and they're not fixed. They're just, you still have that. So all the other reforms we see that we need as a society, the revival we need as a society, it's there in the military and you see it. Why was the withdrawal from Afghanistan such a disaster? It's because there were no leaders willing to step up and speak truth from the top down. And so you had utter chaos in the way it was handled. And that's just a symptom of what Biden sowed, what the Obama administration sowed. And again, you have people that are valuing their pension and their career, their position, power more than anything else. And until we transform it, we shrink it, we get rid of general officers, and go to a lean, mean force, we're going to have a whole lot of people there that need to be transformed, or we won't see long-term change.
Amazing stuff. And you're on the front lines of this. You're an advocate for patriots who've been wronged in this situation, you yourself being one of them. So what can people do to support some of the work that you and others are doing to help patriot members of the military who've been hard done, shall we say, by under these policies? Well, hopefully soon to be gone policies, but.
Yeah, I think it's all the things we would see with any other issue. It's, when you have a confirmation hearing, like someone like Matt Lohmeyer, call your senator's office. If you're listening to this, call your senator's office and say, hey, we need Matt Lohmeyer confirmed. There are others, Hung Kao, there are others that are coming in. So being politically active, being a courageous patriot and doing those things is important. One of the organizations that I work with is an organization called Stand With Warriors. So standwithwarriors.org. It was started by pastors during COVID. We were able to help hundreds and hundreds of people stay in the military and continue to serve despite what was happening by the Biden administration. And that organization is looking to support Secretary Hegseth, Lohmeyer, and others and continue to make a difference. They backed up Navy SEAL Captain Brad Geary, who's a phenomenal Christian they tried to make him a victim of the communist woke ideology when he refused to compromise on standards. And he was almost a victim of that, even though he's a great, courageous patriot and a Christian brother. So we were able to help him and get him to a retirement. We've been able to help others. Stand With Warriors was pivotal and help Michael Cassidy, who was a reservist who tore down the Bahomet statue in the Iowa Capitol. And that's right. I was able to represent him at his Navy discharge board. The Navy tried to kick him out, take away his ability to serve as an officer in the reserves. They labeled him a dangerous domestic extremist because he did that.
Because that's what George Washington and Alexander Hamilton, of course, would do if you set up a satanic altar in one of our public spaces. Yeah, insane.
You're absolutely right. So Stand With Warriors. That's a great organization. People can check that out and see how they can support them. And again, supporting shows like yours and helping just everyday people understand how they can prepare and make a difference. Those are all the things that make a difference. It's the standard things. Don't think of the military as something different, some sacred thing that doesn't need reform and change. It does, because it's people there, and we need revival in the military just like we do throughout the rest of society.
And you've got a law firm page, website, themilitarycouncil.com.
That's right. Yes. Yeah. Yes. So I have a law firm. I opened it in 2019. We represent a lot of military members who are dealing with whether it's some sort of investigation, DEI issues. We also represent military members in court martial. And a big part of our work is helping people maintain their security clearances as well as fix their records when there's a problem. And security clearances are an interesting thing. Just an anecdote, there's so much discretion there that particularly during the Biden administration, if you were a Christian, you could easily be labeled an extremist, and that would put your security clearance in danger. And we successfully represented multiple people who were facing that. And it really was about their faith, what they believed, and that they were sincere in their Christian faith. They were at risk of being labeled an extremist.
And Pete suffered that, if I recall. Pete Hegseth, didn't he? He himself was a victim of that.
That's absolutely right. He was his unit was going to DC to just support operations there related to January 6th, just the inauguration.
Yep, the inauguration. Yep.
And because he has a tattoo that includes a Jerusalem cross, among other tattoos, like We the People tattoo, he was labeled a religious extremist, and his whole unit went. And even though he was the commander of that unit, he wasn't allowed to go. So he understands what was happening to Christians during the Biden administration.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, gang, as you can see, we are in good hands with people like Davis out there on the front lines. Literally, he's a first responder in his gut. So go follow Davis on X, check out his website and the law firm page, themilitarycouncil.com. And also, where did I just wrote it down? Stand with War. There it is. Stand with Wars. Was it .org?
Yes, standwithwarriors.org. That's right.
We'll have the links down below for everyone to check that out. Amazing organizations, definitely worth our support. Davis, you're awesome. Come back and visit us again anytime.
Oh, it's a true honor. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Davis.